looked like for your family?
Yeah, it's it's an overwhelming emotion. You get a sense of grief, you get a sense of just it's very overwhelming. It's like and I'm the type of person that's determined. I'm like, okay, how do I fix this? What's next?
Oh,
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. So it's just, very overwhelming. It's like, I want to try and find the best doctors to help treat my son. And that's kind of what sent us down this journey when, you're kind of, charting your own path. So it's.
Right. So let me just take a little pause there. So, Joao, help us understand YWHAG in everyday language. What is happening in the brain, and why is this research important, not only for these children, but potentially for our broader understanding of neurological diseases?
Of course, I'm happy to. So the YWHAG gene encodes for a protein that has a much easier name called 1433 gamma. It's a protein that's expressed while people are developing. So it's expressed in neurons during developing brain. And then later it's expressed in other cells in the brain called astrocytes and other subtypes of cells as well. The role that this protein has is to act as a scaffold for most of, or a great part of, the cytoskeleton. There's a huge amount of this protein in the cell, and the cell has this structure to it, almost like a highway of connecting tubes and tubules that link certain parts of the cells and maintain structure. Right. Disturbing this structure breaks everything. And more, there's rising interest on how this protein can be associated as a biomarker for other diseases like Alzheimer's disease, and also how it can affect neuronal function.
So how did this mutation actually? How was it detected to begin with, and how did it actually have an effect on your son, Andrew?
Yeah. So my family, I guess ignorance is bliss, right? I'd never had any experience with a rare disease before my son's diagnosis. It happened one morning. It's kind of etched in my brain forever, is that James was born normal and, had a normal, first few months of life. And, we were just, he's our firstborn. So we were just kind of, taking it in and learning as any new parents do. And one morning he had his first seizure, and it was the most horrible, dramatic thing that I remember, unfortunately, just like it was yesterday. And that kind of sent us down this road of hospital visits and asking, why is this happening? And it was through a genetic panel testing that was, just literally a Q-tip swab, basically, that they gave us the news that he had this rare disease that neither my wife nor myself have. So it just happened to him, unfortunately.
Not genetic. It sometimes can be genetic, but not necessarily, right, Joao?
So it is usually genetic. What it can be is familiar or not. So it's not present in Andrew or his spouse, but it is present in James because it just happened while James was developing.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to give an analogy, and Joao, please evaluate this analogy. Okay. So think of your brain like a school play. All right. So the YWHAG gene is the instruction page for the stage manager, the person who keeps everyone on cue. An ultra rare YWHAG mutation is like a typo in those instructions. The show still goes on, but cues can get mixed up, which can lead to challenges like seizures, right?
Yes.
Speech delays or learning differences. Is this correct?
As far as analogies go, it's actually a pretty good one.
Thank you.
YWHAG holds everything together.
Struggling to understand this. This is very complex.
It is complicated, and I have to say I struggled with understanding when I started to. It wasn't something that we were looking into. We looked into it because of Andrew's story.
Wow. So how did you find UAB and then Joao? How did this happen?
Yeah. I was going to say, just to briefly back up a little bit, is that, I'm forever grateful for Dr. Pereira and his work. When my son was on this odyssey of, my wife and I were trying to find doctors to help, we're like, surely, someone can help us, so we went to all these different hospitals and specialists, and I'll never forget, there was one doctor that said, the problem with the rare diseases, such as what James has, is that, they're rare. No one's going to pay attention to them. They're just so rare. And that kind of really stuck with my wife and I, because your kid's diagnosed with a rare disease, and that's the last thing you want to hear is that, it's so rare, no one's going to help you. So that kind of really is like, you know what? No one's going to fight for our son and others like my wife and I are. So let's chart this path, and just really through persistence and, being connected with a lot of good people, thankfully, we, the person that helps me with the foundation is, she's like, I just saw Dr. Pereira set up a new lab. You should really reach out to him. And it was just the power of social media and Dr. Pereira just having, being the one person to want to help my son.
So this person literally just saw Dr. Pereira on social media. Is that what you said?
Yes, yeah. She's very well connected, but she's like, he started a new lab. I follow him. You should reach out. And that's,
oh my gosh. Tell from your perspective.
Okay, so it doesn't help that I'm an absolute blabbermouth on social media.
Or maybe it does.
Maybe it does help. If you look back, and please don't, attentively enough, you'll find my whole journey recorded on multiple social media sites now. But I think it's important to share how science happens, how scientific careers happen. And
yes, sir.
I've always advocated this. Don't hide it behind a black box. Just show behind the curtain what's going on. And I had just moved from Yale. I was running a core at Yale, which was a great job. I had a lot of fun, met fantastic people there, but wasn't independent, so I couldn't run my own research. UAB came up to me and said, how about you do a similar thing here, but you get your own independent lab that you can use some discretionary funds to start and get going. And that's a little bit about, that was the serendipity of all this, the luck involved in all this. When I was starting, a couple of things had just happened. I just moved in at UAB. I was waiting to get my lab going. My lab specializes on human models of diseases, and I can go into it in detail if anyone would like to listen. But we work mostly on Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, and we work on Alzheimer's disease as well. And we just started to get going, and we were still ordering everything that we needed. And we were going to wait a little bit to get the materials that we needed, the cells that we needed to get started. And what happened was I was approached in social media by Dr. Ellen Shan, which helps Andrew with the foundation. And she mentioned, I have this case, I have this story. I'd love for you to listen to it. And I'm a father of 4. I have two girls, a 9-year-old, almost 10, and an 8-year-old. And I have twin boys that had just been born at the time. I have nightmares about what Andrew experienced.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So when I heard the story, I couldn't but help. And that's when because we have access to this starting package of discretionary funds that we could use for whatever we wanted, I didn't have to compete for funds with NIH or with any of the major funding agency.
Gotcha. So you had this incredible startup package. Okay, this story will be continued after we come back from break. This is fascinating stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. You've been listening to The Noon Show on FM 100.1. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Noon Show right here on FM 100.1. Thank you so much for joining us. What a fascinating conversation that we're having today on something that most of us have never heard about. And, as the conversation was going, to Andrew and to Joao, I'm trying my best.
It was.
I'd like to kind of help us understand how this very rare disease, how it manifests itself. I mean, what does it look like for us, the average person? What does it look like? What is their child going through? And is there any progress on addressing it?
Well, I think the best person to actually answer to what a child with the disease is going through is Andrew.
Yes,
I can tell you a little bit about what happens at the molecular level, at the cellular level, but Andrew lives with James every day, and James is fantastic. And I had the pleasure to meet him.
He is. Yeah,
You did? You met James?
James is amazing.
Could Andrew kind of give us a little bit more personal look at what your son goes through and what happens and how do you and your family deal with a very, very rare condition?
Yeah, I think, arguably one of the hardest things is that in a sense, it's an invisible disease.
Okay.
You look at my son and, you wouldn't know anything, you wouldn't know anything is different. So that kind of, I guess from an outsider's perspective, people treat him, and have expectations of him. And when he doesn't follow through or understand, they, it's difficult. But, as a parent, it's, he has learning delays, developmental delays, epilepsy. So really our whole life, changed. It's like, how does James feel? Does James need to take a break? How, has he eaten? Has he drinking water? You want him to try and have a normal life and, play outside, go swimming. But, unfortunately, we're learning, but it's like it's hard because as a kid you want to keep having fun, but with epilepsy it's he's had seizures when he's been swimming in the pool, and it's been horrifying for us. And it's thankfully I was right there, but he loves swimming, so it's like it's just we have to plan our lives kind of around how James is feeling. How does he look? How did he sleep? It's just, we got to really tailor and be safe for James, and that really extends to other areas too, academically, and, making sure he gets, the therapies he needs, physical therapy. Early intervention is so important. And, he still does have his challenges, but I'm very thankful that, we've made tremendous strides, and we are seeing, small steps, things, James has an incredibly kind heart, and when he wants to learn something, he can, but he works on his own schedule. So we've really had to adapt to him and what we think is best for him and how he learns. It's certainly not traditional or the easy path.
Andrew, we admire you and your family and James so much reading your story, because this could have been a very isolating situation, but you and your family have decided, no, we're going to embrace what we're dealing with and build a community of families who are experiencing similar things, physicians, researchers, all working together toward a common goal. So tell us a little bit about that journey for our audience, because great admiration for what you and your entire community surrounding James, what you're doing, because it's a remarkable story.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, I guess one of my goals backing up is with the foundation is to just, the sense of overwhelming of just hopelessness when I got the diagnosis from James, and kind of, they're like, I'm sorry, it is what it is. And we're like, well, it's all consuming, just that feeling of lost and hopelessness and like no future. So, that's really what drove me and continues to drive me is, hope and pushing for a better future for James and others with his condition. And, I'm by far no means an expert in anything scientific. It's not what my background or what I went to school, but I've just, late nights, up till 1, 2 a.m. reading research papers, trying to find people to email to help. And, it's through determination and just being politely persistent, I like to call it, is just asking people like, hey, this is what my son has. I see you study something relevant, or you put a research paper out there. Can you help? Do you want to join? And, through that, we've made tremendous progress in a few years, and there's a lot of work still to be done, but it's exciting to see, things such as what Dr. Pereira is doing is, making a difference and going from nothing about James's condition to having a research paper put out that talks about how something, impacts this rare disease. And it's incredible. I'm extremely grateful for everyone that's helped, and especially Dr. Pereira.
So, Dr. Pereira, speaking of the research paper that Andrew was alluding to, so the fact of the matter is research is often measured in years, right, rather than days. So we're kind of wondering what breakthroughs or milestones have given both of you the confidence that meaningful therapies are becoming increasingly possible for this.
So I will preface this by saying that I'm not a medical doctor, right? I'm a scientist at heart, so I cannot suggest that anyone takes anything at all, and will never do that.
We understand. Okay.
But what happened with this particular project is what I like to think of a unicorn. It's something that you never see, something truly special. And we were very fortunate about the way this unfolded. We, in the lab, to give you some context, we take donor cells where people donate cells, adults donate cells, and we can convert them into something called induced pluripotent stem cells.
Induced what?
Pluripotent stem cells.
Okay.
iPSCs. So these cells can do everything in our body. So by taking a little bit of your skin or of your blood, we can replicate your genetic makeup and make neurons out of it. And this is what we did with cells that had the same mutation that James had. Now, these were not James cells, but they had the same mutation. And we made neurons out of them. And we could, in the span of a year, thanks to the incredible work done by our postdocs in the lab, Dr. Anna Schreiber mostly, and also Dr. Anna Gupta, that just dove into this and were able, from knowing absolutely nothing, to figuring out how it was working, how the disease was working, but also how a specific drug, a statin, modulated it. So we figured out that the protein was actually the 14-3 gamma, this YWHAG protein, was affecting calcium levels in the cell, and that by using a statin, we could restore them on a dish with neurons made from skin cells. And this is the promise of this technology that it's been around for a while now, almost 20 years ago now. But it's rare that it works so well. This worked really well. And then this gives us hope into running a drug screen to try to identify other compounds that work better, or even using statin in the future for some kind of clinical application. We talked to Andrew, and things progressed from there. But we stick to the science. So everybody else does.
You stick to the science, but has his doctor recommended that he use the statins? And if so, what were the results, Andrew?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, Dr. Pereira mentioned it, but his lab, as a parent, each day is so challenging, and, it's hard seeing your kid not progress or have, struggle with epilepsy or learning delays. And Dr. Pereira we're forever grateful for his lab, his team, himself, because he was one of the people that, in fact, I'd say the only person who after we met with him, he had such an urgency, and he's like, Andrew, I want to help James. I want to, if I can help one kid, that's a good day. And, that's kind of the type of, that was so refreshing on our journey that I still remember that phone call, or the call we had with him. It was it was incredible. But to fast forward to, he did the needed tests, and we consulted with James's doctors and a clinician that helps with the research for the foundation. They're like, this statin is very safe. It's been used in other rare diseases. We don't see any we don't see any
no contraindications.
Right. No, we don't see any
No
potential,
reason not to. Right.
Right. Yeah. So we started it, and I tell Dr. Pereira, I wish it was a magic bullet, but it's every little bit helps, and of course, it's impossible. It's impossible to say, what James would be like with or without it, because it is also new. But as James's parent who lives with him and deals with him, it has there's been a lot of small changes, and other people have noticed that as well, which is why it's so exciting. It's like he's been on it a few months, and we're seeing changes, and just things that he's doing that that are good but uncharacteristic of how he was, or it's just exciting to see.
I can well imagine.
So there is some hope that it at the very least, not to Pierre, that it does kind of help manage these rare kind of conditions. At least helps in that way.
That's the expectation.
Okay.
We're discovering more and more about how the disease works and what's underlying the pathology behind it. And the hope is that now we might be able to get some funding, some traction to understand a little bit better how to proceed with drug design and discovery for this.
Okay.
It's always going to be hard because it's so rare.
Yeah. Is there any relation to other rare conditions or other similar conditions? Is there a connection anywhere?
So we think that, and not just us, others, that there are other forms of epilepsy associated with cytoskeletal defects, these defects in the base foundation of the cell. So maybe, I think so.
Yeah, so there is some really good hope coming out of this. It's just kind of hard to understand what Andrew and his family's going through. It really is, because most of us don't have to do that.
It's to relate, for sure.
It really is, but we want to continue this really poignant conversation.
Love a good unicorn, whether it's in the form of a stem cell or an iPSC or a lovastatin, an FDA-approved drug. We're going to have more of this wonderful conversation when we come back after this break. You've been listening to The Noon Show on FM 100.1. Don't go away. We will be here right back.
And welcome back to the Noon Show, everyone. Glad you're with us right here on FM 100.1 and streaming everywhere on thenoonshow.com. That little listen now button. Tell someone else to check us out. And check us out on Facebook and like us and follow us. We'd love to have you as a member of our family. And what a moving, poignant, inspiring conversation today. Real world, folks. And that's what we're thankful that we can bring you.
That's right. But before we get back to the conversation, Johnny, could I ask you a simple question?
Sure. Those are usually the hardest ones, though.
Okay, yeah. But like, what impresses you?
Oh, goodness. Consistency.
Not flashy marketing?
No, never.
Not the biggest building?
Nope.
Then what?
People who do what they say they're going to do consistently year after year after year.
That sounds kind of like you've got somebody specific in mind.
Well, I do. It's Bryant Bank. They've earned our confidence and hundreds of other customers over the last 21 years.
Well, you know, consistency really does matter.
Well, especially when you're choosing a bank.
You can visit Bryant Bank at any one of their beautiful locations, North River, Northport, and beautiful downtown T-Town, or online at bryantbank.com.
And also remember, they're an equal housing lender and a member of FDIC. Go see our friends at Bryant Bank today, just like Lisa and I got to visit with them yesterday.
Yeah, shout out to Claude and Michelle. What a great conversation we had.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, so imagine Andrew and Dr. Pereira. You're sitting here together 10 years from now. What do you hope we'll be celebrating because of the work that's happening today?
The fact that I don't work on this anymore, because it's all.
What do you say, Andrew? Same?
Yeah, same. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, you know, I want to talk a little bit more about stem cells and precision medicine. Those concepts can be kind of intimidating for some of us, but if you were explaining your work to a middle school student, how would you describe it, Dr. Pereira, and why is it changing the future of medicine?
That's a very good question. Now, as I mentioned before, I have children, so I know how to explain it to elementary school and above, but maybe not middle, so I'll try. I think the best way to describe it is that it is medicine applied to every single person in particular, taking into account your genetic context, who you are, what makes you you. Your DNA isn't everything. It's not who you are and what you'll be, but it does define certain characteristics for you. And it defines your susceptibility to disease. It defines risk factors. It defines a number of other things that can affect what type of diseases, if any, you'll develop during your life. Precision medicine is taking all that information into account in designing therapies specialized for you.
Yes, very, very targeted, specialized therapies.
I like the term, using the term precision medicine, kind of help us lay people understand a little bit more why you're defining it that way.
So let's put it this way. You've heard of broad spectrum antibiotics. If you need an antibiotic, your doctor will prescribe something that usually works for everyone.
Okay.
That is generic.
Okay,
medicine,
that's
which is
generic,
fine.
Sure.
Precision medicine is to define which one will work best for you at that precise moment. Now, if you just have an infection, your doctor usually can't do that in a heartbeat because it's more urgent to take care of the infection than to actually define if this antibiotic would work slightly better or not.
Yeah.
But if you have a long-term disease, if you have a genetic disease, neurodegeneration, anything like that, it is worth exploring.
Yeah. Want to target it with a rifle instead of a shotgun.
Exactly. Something a little bit more precise.
That makes sense.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Don't forget Dr. Duarte and the analogy about the chocolate chips being cancer, being housed in different environments, such as a muffin or a cookie. Well, he was talking precision medicine too. Well, a spoon being the cure is not going to work as well on the cookie as it would the muffin, for example. So I thought that was a great way to paint the picture. But yeah, so it's not a one size fits all strategy. It's very precise.
For some, so the thing is, generic medicine approaches work. They work for most things.
Yeah.
This is for the more complex diseases that we're still struggling to deal with.
And I just realized you don't define a term with the term itself. So sorry about that. My bad, y'all. So Andrew, tell us more about the work of your foundation and how would our listeners be able to maybe reach out and help to support it?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So research is certainly, a very important aspect. You want to work towards, improving the patient's lives. But I've also kind of learned that, outreach is just equally important in advocating as well. Reaching out to other family members and trying to, host, we're trying to work towards like hosting like a family conference where all the families can get together. That's one of our long-term goals. Or even I host, quarterly Zoom meetings with the families to kind of get everyone together and learn the, address important topics, talk about, updates for the foundation, and just get an opportunity to connect with other families because, the rare disease can be so isolating, and it's good to connect with other families to know that, you kind of share in their struggles, and what works, for one kid might help another kid. So it's just really trying to just, also advocate for our cause as well, because it is hard with such few patients, but with time, I feel like it'll just continue to be more and more common, because even from when I started the foundation, there was, 20, 25 patients, and now we're up to, almost 60. So, it is still incredibly rare, but, through genetic testing becoming more and more common, it is becoming, we are getting more patients reaching out to us, which is great, because I want to connect and help those families. But, if anyone wants to, learn more about the foundation, or, learn about our cause, or just, help or volunteer, please just look up the YWHAG Foundation. And, I think we have an incredible website. I'm really proud of it. And we have a lot of tools and resources, and, we can connect there.
So, I mean, to begin with, it's an invisible disease, which is really tricky, because people look at your son and don't necessarily think something's wrong with them right off the bat, right? And would have certain expectations. Right. And then on top of that, it's a rare genetic condition, and then that would make you, as the caregiver, feel even more alone. So the work of your foundation is absolutely incredible. But now I'm hearing you say, Andrew, that it's not quite as rare as it was. It's becoming more common. So, Dr. Pereira, what would account for that? What is the cause, or do you know yet?
It's not necessarily the cause. It's the fact that we can find it better. We test for it.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question in that,
okay.
And we're going to run out of time, I'm afraid, but is there progress being made on, I'm going to call it early genetic testing, to try and identify potential diseases, rare situations? Is there progress being made there?
Like, where would we even do that around here? And wouldn't it also, just to supplement Johnny's question, wouldn't it also be the primary care physician's role to sort of recognize that and send you somewhere for testing?
Yes, to both. There is progress being made every day, and new panels of genes are being added for testing. And yes, it would be somebody's primary care physician that would point them towards genetic testing. Here, you can do it at UAB and a variety of other places.
Mm-hmm.
That's convenient.
Okay. It just seems like the more we can address it early, the more preventive, the more ways we can find those solutions and cures, which you work on every day.
Exactly. And I think it's more, the more people realize that it's not that the disease is becoming more prevalent, that there's more of it, it's just that we're getting better at finding it.
Yeah, which is really key to solutions.
Right.
It's amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Very special work.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, for families who may have just received a really difficult diagnosis, or for listeners wondering how they can help, what message of hope would you leave them with? But that's pretty much, we'll just stop the question at that. What's your message of hope?
Reach out. Just reach out. There's so many people online and multiple social media sites. You'll find scientists everywhere. We're like flies. And it's just reach out to people. Even if people seem inaccessible, it's not really the case. We try our best. Now, not everybody might have the resources to be able to help. I was lucky enough to be able to be at the right position at that time.
Yes.
That's not always the case. But try. People do actually care.
And to your point, that's what we have discovered ourselves, because all of the researchers that we've had the great privilege of meeting, getting to know, are all exactly what you're saying. They're accessible, they're engaging, they're hungry to tell their story and work with you. And yes, they're academically brilliant, but they're also real people that care. And I just really appreciate about that, and you including.
Yes,
you.
thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you to Dr. Pereira. Thank you, Andrew Miner, for joining us via Microsoft Teams, for joining us and telling this important story. We have run out of time. I would like to let everyone know that we have Michael Walker he is the new Executive Director of Theater Tuscaloosa, coming on tomorrow, as well as Drew Baker from Tuscaloosa's Children's Theater. And before we go, I would like to remind everyone, don't forget to spay or neuter your furry friends and keep those tails wagging with up-to-date vaccinations. For Johnnie Aycock, I'm Lisa Jones, signing off for the Noon Show. But before we go, I'd like to wish everyone a splendiferous rest of their day. See you on the radio tomorrow.